What will happen when a herd of elephants walks into a dark cave and disappears without a sound? In a quiet forest on the edge of Mount Elgon, something strange unfolds, something no one expected. A secret deep inside the mountain is about to be revealed. The story begins in Mount Elgon National Park, where a group of tourists stood near a quiet trail, wearing warm jackets and wool hats. The air was fresh and smelled like damp soil and wildflowers. Birds chirped in the distance, and the trees whispered with the wind. In front of them stood the mighty Mount Elgon, an ancient volcano that marks the border between Kenya and Uganda. The group had already seen playful monkeys jumping through the trees and calm buffalo grazing nearby. Everything felt peaceful. But what they didn't know was that something strange was waiting deep in the forest. Their real adventure was just about to begin, and it would take them to a place no one ever imagined. As they stood chatting with their guide and enjoying the peaceful forest, something strange caught their eye. In the distance, a group of elephants was moving through the trees, but not in the usual way. These elephants weren't wandering or grazing. They were walking in a tight group, quiet and serious, like they were on a mission. Elephants normally move slowly and spread out, but these ones looked focused. One of the tourists pointed and asked, "Why are they going into that cave?" Their guide, Andrew, stopped talking. He lifted his binoculars and looked closely at the large, dark opening in the mountain, Cave. His face changed as he watched the elephants disappear one by one into the cave. He looked confused, even a little worried. In all his years as a ranger, he had never seen elephants do this. Something about it felt unusual. Something about it felt important. And maybe even a little dangerous. Andrew had always felt a deep bond with the land. He was born in a small Kenyan village near the forest, where wild animals often passed by his home. His father worked as a forest guide, so Andrew grew up surrounded by nature. The forest was his playground. While other kids played with toys, he played under the trees, watched monkeys swing above him, and listened to lions roar in the distance. He loved every part of it. As he grew older, he studied conservation at university because he wanted to protect the wild places he loved so much. Becoming a ranger at Mount Elgon was his dream, and he made it come true. Every day he guided tourists through the park, shared stories about the animals, and quietly made sure everything stayed safe. But when he saw the elephants entering the cave, even he felt unsure. He told the group it was just a path to the savannah, but inside something didn't feel right. He couldn't shake the worry. That evening, back at ranger headquarters, Andrew couldn't stop thinking about the elephants. He sat quietly, replaying the strange scene over and over in his mind. Finally, he told the other rangers what he had seen. Some of them frowned. Others raised their eyebrows. Elephants didn't act like that. They were creatures of habit. Cave was known for sheltering smaller animals like buffalo or hyenas, never elephants. The cave was too dark, too narrow, and never used by such large animals. But Andrew's voice was calm and serious. He wasn't joking, and the others could feel it. Something about the way he spoke made them all pause. The mystery was too strange to ignore. After talking for a while, they agreed. They had to go see it for themselves. The next morning, Andrew and a few rangers headed back to the cave. They moved quietly, hiding near the trees. For hours, nothing happened. Just when the sun began to sink and they were ready to leave, the elephants returned. Slowly, in perfect silence, the herd walked toward the cave again. Not one stepped out of line, not one made a sound. The rangers watched in awe as the elephants disappeared into the darkness. No one said a word. They all wanted to follow the elephants, but they knew it could be dangerous. The cave was narrow and dark. If one of the elephants got scared or angry, there would be no room to escape. Still, none of them could forget what they had seen. Why were the elephants walking into that cave? Were they hiding from something? Was there something inside calling them? That night, the rangers sat around a small fire, talking in low voices. The forest was quiet, but their minds were full of questions. After a long discussion, they made a decision. They would go back the next day. This time, they would follow the elephants, but carefully, slowly, and without making a sound. The next morning, the sun rose with soft golden light. The rangers packed flashlights, water, and light supplies. They dressed simply and acted like any other group of hikers. When the elephants returned, the rangers stayed far behind, walking slowly and watching every step. As they entered the cave, a cold breeze touched their skin. The forest sounds faded away. All they could hear now was the soft echo of their footsteps and the quiet movements of the elephants ahead. The deeper they went, the darker it became. And still, they followed. Then, in the stillness, a strange sound echoed off the walls, a loud crack, followed by scraping and thudding. The rangers froze. The cave had been silent just moments ago. Now it sounded like something was breaking. More cracks followed, sharp and clear, like stone being chipped away. They quickly turned on their flashlights. What they saw made their eyes go wide. The elephants were working. With their strong tusks and feet, they were hitting the cave walls, breaking off pieces of rock. Big chunks fell to the ground. But instead of walking away, the elephants began to pick them up and eat them. The flashlight beams danced across the cave walls, which sparkled in the dark. That's when the rangers understood. The walls were full of salt. Thick, glittering lines of it ran through the stone. The elephants hadn't wandered into the cave by mistake. They came here for a reason. They needed salt, something hard to find in the dry grasslands outside. The rangers stood quietly, watching the amazing sight. The elephants weren't scared. They knew exactly what they were doing. They chipped, crunched, and chewed, working like skilled miners. The only sounds were the crack of rock, the crunch of salt, and the soft steps of giants in the dark. It was a moment of deep respect for the elephants, for their quiet wisdom, and for the secrets of nature that people still didn't fully understand. The rangers stood there, watching in silence, amazed at what they had just seen. These elephants weren't just wandering animals. They had a purpose. They knew what they were doing. And somehow, they had learned this skill and passed it down from one generation to the next. The rangers didn't stay long. They didn't want to scare the herd or break the peaceful rhythm of the cave. Slowly and quietly, they turned back and walked out into the warm sunlight. Their minds were full of questions and wonder. That night, Andrew sat outside under the stars. He thought about the elephants, deep inside the cave, working in the dark to collect something simple but important: salt. It wasn't treasure, it wasn't gold, but it mattered. It was something their bodies needed to survive. And they had figured out how to get it, all on their own. Soon, the story spread. Scientists came to learn more. Tourists were curious. But the rangers protected the cave. They made rules to keep people away while the elephants visited, making sure nothing disturbed the peace the animals needed. Andrew kept guiding visitors through the park. He still pointed out birds, buffalo tracks, and rare trees. But when they came near the path to Kitum Cave, he always stopped. He'd smile and glance toward the shadows, then tell the story of the elephants who walked into the mountain. Not to hide, but to work. And sometimes, if the forest was still enough, he could hear it again. the quiet sound of tusks against stone, deep in the heart of the mountain.